there's a Bitcoin supply crisis brewing. Look, it's been a few months since we discussed the Bitcoin supply crisis, but it's got much worse. So in today's video, let's bust out some hopium charts and get another hit of the good stuff here, okay? Let's get a current overview at the Bitcoin exchange and OTC data, the adoption metrics right now of ETFs and public companies, and the latest news on the nation state front, because big things are happening. It's absolutely insane. This is definitely the Bitcoin cycle. Then we're going to talk about how all this could create a truly shocking Bitcoin price move this year. So let's dive straight in here. Here's the latest from CryptoQuant with regards to the total amount of Bitcoin currently sitting on all exchanges, which has been in a downtrend literally for years. The exchange supply here is in purple and Bitcoin's price is in black. I'm sure you can notice the correlation, okay? This graph goes back to early May 2022. So we're at a 3-year low here, or more years than that actually, with only 2.4 million Bitcoin currently on exchanges. Now here's the same chart from Glassnode, but this one goes back to the beginning of time. The exchange reserves are in gold, as you can see. And also, last time reserves were this low 7 years ago, mid-2018. It's crazy stuff. Now, this might seem insignificant, but it's not. Remember, new Bitcoin is continually mined and released into the market. So the fact that we're back to 2018 exchange reserve numbers is crazy. Demand's gone through the roof since 2018, despite there being 2.8 million more Bitcoin in circulation today as compared to 2018. There's less Bitcoin sitting on exchanges. So that's a massive amount of Bitcoin that's been sucked up by the continual flow of money. It's a big deal. Now, about current OTC balances. Well, here's Bitcoin's total OTC balances since 2017. The OTC balances, as you can see, are in blue. Now observe that the amount of OTC Bitcoin is at a low, with only 150,000 Bitcoin remaining. Now, 150,000 Bitcoin, it's not nothing, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not that much, okay? That's just a cool $14.2 billion, just $14 billion. That's all you need to wipe out the OTC desks. Then there's no Bitcoin. That's a crisis. That's not that much money. When OTC desks get cleaned out, then buckle up your seatbelts, because prices will move hard when the OTC buyers begin purchasing the spot supply off exchanges. So let's look at the current entity adoption data from a macro perspective. So this is from bitcointreasuries.net, a website that tracks the amount of Bitcoin and company treasuries, the total amount of Bitcoin owned by public and private companies, ETFs, funds, governments, etc. The Bitcoin that's locked in smart contracts, all that kind of stuff. Okay, now look, this graph goes back to 2014, but you can see that this thing has been on a damn just massive incline since 2020, when MicroStrategy, of course, started buying Bitcoin. Now, if you're wondering who has been scooping up all the OTC Bitcoin, then look no farther than MicroStrategy. MicroStrategy, guys. No, a lot of other guys are doing it too, actually. Here's the entity adoption data again, starting from 2020, and one more time starting from 2024. Now, check this out. From the beginning of 2024 to February 2025, these entities combined pulled in a net total of, listen to this, 1.2 million Bitcoin. So yeah, the $150,000, 150,000 BTC on the OTC desks, not a big deal. That's just in 13 months. So if 2025 plays out any kind of way similar to last year, then where's the Bitcoin going to come from? It appears that the only place left is from the exchanges, and that's going to drive the price up. So here's some more of that macro data, just sliced up a little bit differently. On the left, you can see that we're now tracking 160 confirmed entities that are holding Bitcoin. This number continues to go up as more companies announce, more countries announce, all that kind of stuff. About half of these 160 entities are public companies, about 30% are ETFs, and the others are funds. On the right, you can see that out of the 3.1 million Bitcoin held, the ETFs and other funds have about 40%, with public and private companies and governments sharing the other 50%. Now, that's the macro picture for the entities. Let's drill into the ETFs. Here's how much Bitcoin the ETFs have acquired since 2020. Huge numbers. I say since 2020, since that's when we got Canadian Bitcoin ETFs. America was a bit slow getting to the game, but they caught up straight away. Here's when the US spot Bitcoin ETFs were approved in 2024. So the ETFs alone have grown 73% in just the last 13 months. Because, of course, America, a lot of money in American equity markets, which make up over half the world's equity markets in total. Canada is just 2%. Brazil is just like 1%. They were early adopters of ETFs, though. Thank you for the service, BlackRock. Now we'll have to see how the ETF flows play out in 2025, but so far, so good. Now, check this out from Bitwise. The net inflows from just the US spot ETFs have been 2.6 times larger than what Bitcoin miners have produced in 2025, meaning that just the Bitcoin ETFs, just American Bitcoin ETFs, not any other source, has bought 2.6 times more Bitcoin than miners have produced in the same amount of time. Now, before we turn to the public companies, a quick shout out to today's sponsor, which is iTrust. If you want to save big on taxes, and who doesn't want to save big on taxes, then iTrust might be just the solution that you've been looking for. With iTrust, you can trade all of the top coins. They got your Bitcoin, they got your Ethereum, your dog coin, okay? They got it all. And as part of your existing retirement account, you can make as many trades as you want over here. 100 trades, 1,000 trades, whatever, and you're never going to hit a taxable event. You can even create a new IRA, 401k, whatever your tax retirement program might be. They're open 24/7, 365, unlike the equity markets, and they're the biggest IRA provider in the cryptocurrency game. They even do in-kind withdrawals, which means that you can take the coins, put them in your own self-custody pocket. And they have a really cool partnership with Kitco that allows you to get physical gold and physical silver to help diversify out your gains, which is pretty damn cool. Now, to learn more about what iTrust is doing, to see if their solutions are right for you, click on the link down below. And when you do that, you'll even get a $100 sign-up bonus. Go check it out, and thank you for supporting our sponsors. Okay, back to it. Now, I get super excited when I think about this next category is because of the network effect, which is growing massively. So right now, there are, check this out, 77 publicly traded companies that hold Bitcoin on their balance sheets. Now, obviously, MicroStrategy is the big famous one. You have some mining companies like Marathon Digital. By the way, Marathon Digital, that's a stock to watch out. We're, in my opinion, not financial advice, obviously. I've got some Marathon stocks. But anyway, you go check that out. Now, look, these 77 companies spread across the globe. We have some Japanese companies that have been doing it, Semler Scientific, all kinds of people, right? They're out there in the marketplace operating their businesses. Their stocks are being traded. They're connected to investors, competitors, other affiliated groups. And these companies stacking Bitcoin, taking on new debt to stack more Bitcoin, issuing more stocks to buy more Bitcoin. The growth story behind Bitcoin stock companies has been massive. So all these different people get exposed to Bitcoin through owning these corporations. And again, MicroStrategy, the biggest one of these examples. Now, every time a new company jumps on board, it forces a brand new segment of the global population to pay attention to Bitcoin. It's massive. So I believe that tracking Bitcoin adoption by public companies is really, really important, because it is a great area of adoption to see basically companies around the world saying, this is better than holding cash. And here's the total amount of Bitcoin that's been purchased by public companies since 2020. Of course, MicroStrategy started buying. Now, this thing has been humming along very nicely. Obviously, MicroStrategy's bought over 400,000 Bitcoin, kind of a big deal. But a lot of smaller companies have bought 10 Bitcoin, 1 Bitcoin. I was a company bought 1 Bitcoin and stock pumped, but a lot of companies are buying a lot of Bitcoin. Now, this really went vertical, by the way, November 2024, when old Donald, he got elected. So right now, the public companies combined hold 632,000 Bitcoin, about 430,000, which is MicroStrategy, but the rest of the companies are holding a lot of Bitcoin. Again, we'll see how this shakes out in 2025, but there's absolutely no indication right now that the companies are just magically slowing down. No, we keep getting new announcements every day of new companies buying Bitcoin, or existing companies already have Bitcoin, finding ways to buy more, running the Michael Saylor playbook. Now, obviously, the big standouts here, there's MicroStrategy, which is rebranded into Strategy, okay? Mr. Gigaballs himself, Michael Saylor, they are still buying. You can see since the beginning of this year, they've basically been purchasing a couple $2 billion every week. In fact, they purchased 32,000 Bitcoin across 5 different purchases this year. Then we have stuff, Semler Scientific, which with its last purchase actually just became the 10th largest public company holder of Bitcoin. Pretty cool. Probably never thought about Semler Scientific until they started buying Bitcoin, did you? And that's the point. Then we have Meta Planet, a Japanese company, currently ranked 14th. They're still smashing the buy button. Basically, every other week, I see them announcing new stock issuances or bonds or whatever to buy more Bitcoin. Now back to Semler Scientific, and for the CEO, Eric Semler, or as I like to call him, Michael Saylor Jr., okay? Now right now, Saylor Jr. just introduced something very, very interesting called the zombie zone. Now, we're not talking about the brain-eating type, although, hey, shout out to, Day of the Living Dead and Night of the Living Dead. Those are some classic movies from back in the day, man, weren't they? All filmed in Pennsylvania, where I grew up a long time ago. But it always freaked me out when I was a kid, man. It's like, that shit's happening down the road, man. Hey, besides, getting off track here. Long story short, the zombie zone is any publicly traded company that has large cash reserves, sustainable profitability, and free cash flow, but is struggling with poor stock performance, which has been a lot of companies, to be honest. Stock markets are rational. People put all their money behind top stocks, and it's kind of how it works. Basically, it's companies that the junior here believes that would particularly benefit from adopting a Bitcoin standard because it starts getting them attention. So what exactly is Mr. Semler doing with the companies that he's identified to be in the zombie zone? Well, he's proactive, man. Picking up the phone, he's hitting them on X, saying, yo, guys, you guys need to go buy some Bitcoin, get some damn attention for your companies. The first victim, Zoom. Zoom, a lot of money. Soared in COVID, not so much getting attention anymore. Number two, GameStop. GameStop, come on, GameStop. Crazy. They're going to do it again, aren't they? Right now, mainstream media is reporting that GameStop is considering a Bitcoin investment. Okay, GameStop, I see you there. Oh, and here's just a totally random, unassociated, unrelated photo of Michael Saylor and the GameStop CEO, Ryan Cohen. Just sure there's no connect, probably nothing. Okay, they just put that on next together the other day. Apparently, they're talking about putting up to $4.5 billion into Bitcoin. Crazy stuff, guys. We'll see what they end up doing. But do you see what's happening? This is what I'm talking about when I mention network effects. It just keeps getting more attention, keeps growing. The orange virus keeps spreading. The damn US corporate CEOs are out here orange pilling each other. Okay? Michael Saylor, the high priest, has created a group of lower priests that are out there spreading the good gospel of Satoshi, man. It's crazy stuff. Anyway, let's end this conversation with nation states. Starting with America. I still maintain that at a minimum, Trump will formally establish a U.S. strategic Bitcoin reserve by moving the existing Bitcoin from the Department of Justice to the Treasury. That's probably a relatively easy win. Getting them to buy 1 million Bitcoin for, hundreds of billions of dollars, a bit more of a stretch, but keeping the Bitcoin they have, that makes sense. But if they do buy Bitcoin, it's the icing on the cake, isn't it? And the cherry too, yeah. But enough of what I think. Check out what Anthony Scaramucci recently said a month ago.
The strategic Bitcoin reserve. Do you think that's a thing?
I do, actually.
What does that look like, do you think? So we had Cynthia Lummis on the podcast, and basically if you read through her bill, that is, the very first proposal is basically keep the Bitcoin you already have. And the US has like 200,000 Bitcoin in reserve, right? So that would be level one. Trump could maybe do something like that and kind of call that a success. Now, going beyond that, actually purchasing Bitcoin, actually creating a like a Fort Knox for crypto, maybe that's possible as well. But what do you think is going to happen here?
Well, so first of all, I'm very close to her. I'm very close to Tim Scott. They were both at my conference in Wyoming. Obviously, she's a senator from the great state of Wyoming. And we talked about it over the summer. They've got the votes. Haggerty wants it. McCormick wants it.
They have the votes in the Senate, do you think?
I think so, yeah. There's 53.
Really?
I do think so, yes.
For like to her bill to get 1 million Bitcoin, right? That was her full bill, right?
Well,
to keep the 200,000 then.
This stuff gets horse traded. So you'll probably have 200 won't get sold. They'll probably buy another 400,000 or 500,000 Bitcoin.
What?
Over the next.
You don't think
that's
this is real? It's okay. So, I mean, we've been in crypto for a while. The fact that we're even talking about it still honestly blows my mind.
Well,
but yes, we had a sitting senator talk about it.
Let me tell you why I think it will happen, okay? Trump wants it to happen. And he's got the Senate Banking Committee. Tim Scott wants it to happen. He's going to be the chair of the Senate Banking Committee. Basent wants it to happen. If you're telling me there are no Democrats, and I don't believe this because a lot of Democrats voted for the Saab 121 bill. If you looked at the dispersion of vote, it was a bipartisan approval of that bill. And by the way, Ryan, it was if you were 40 or 50, let's say you were below the age of 60, you voted for the bill if you were a Democrat. If you were a fossil like Elizabeth Warren or Sherrod Brown, you voted against it. So if you're telling me there are no Democrats that are going to vote for that, then I'll say, okay, then we're not going to get it. But I don't see that. I think Ro Khanna would vote for it. I think there's a lot of Democrats that would look at it and say, if Bitcoin is digital gold and we have $600 billion of gold on reserve at our bank, in the Federal Reserve Bank, you're telling me we couldn't put $75 to $100 billion of Bitcoin on reserve? Is that what you're saying? And by the way, you may even liquidate some of that gold to do that. You're saying that's not possible.
So there you go. Scaramucci seems pretty damn confident that we're going to get 200,000 Bitcoin transferred over to the Treasury. Okay. Then the U.S. purchased another 400,000, maybe 500,000 Bitcoin via the Loomis Bitcoin Act. That'd be massive if it happens. Look, what else can I say? Seriously, if the USA purchases an additional 500,000 Bitcoin, the OTC reserves are gone. The Bitcoin on exchanges will get insanely low. Although I do think that any kind of Bitcoin strategic reserve bill probably will be the top of the cycle. Not because it's not long-term fundamentally bullish, because it is, but because everyone's going to hype up the news and sell into it, and then prices go down. And then, of course, we have nation-state FOMO that will kick off in response to the U.S. federal government. In fact, we're already seeing it now in terms of actual states, not nation-states. We have over 30 states in the USA that have some kind of Bitcoin reserve bill working through their state legislators. Not most of those are going to get passed, but a few will. That's billions more buy pressure. Pennsylvania alone, if they talked about putting 5% in, it's about $5 billion. Van X Matthew Sigel has combed through all these bills, and he believes that all combined, if all the U.S. states were to purchase according to the percentages they're proposing, we're talking about 250,000 Bitcoin. Again, more than we have on OTC desks. Going to be a massive dent in the total supply. Now, moving away from the USA, we've seen other countries doing similar things. Last week, news dropped that Abu Dhabi Sovereign Wealth Fund held almost $500 million of BlackRock Bitcoin ETFs. The Czech Republic last month, the central bank's governor said the bank was considering allocating about 5% or a few billion bucks into Bitcoin. We had Japan as well. News hit that the world's fourth largest economy is considering lowering the crypto gains tax from 50 to 20%, legalizing Bitcoin ETFs in the country. And yes, some Japanese politicians have even talked about starting a strategic Bitcoin reserve for Japan, one of the earliest adopting countries of crypto, by the way, in case you don't know. Brazil also, late last year, a bill to legalize Bitcoin strategic reserve was introduced in the Brazilian Congress. I'm not sure where that went or where it's going to go, but Brazil's been right at the front of Bitcoin adoption. South Korea, the government just announced starting that in Q3, major institutions will be allowed to start investing and trading crypto. And this is just the tip of the iceberg, guys. U.S. banks, now that they've repealed the SAB 121 laws, they can now let U.S. banks custody and sell Bitcoin to customers. And this is only some of those recent news. By the way, there's a lot more, okay? So much has been happening over the last several months and over the last 2 years approximately. It's absolutely insane. So look, just to wrap this up, we've got 150,000 Bitcoin OTC disks right now, 2.4 million on exchanges. And just because it's on exchanges doesn't mean it's for sale. People are just lazy, leave their Bitcoin stay on Coinbase and stuff like that. So it's not necessarily up for sale. But when I add everything together, the ETFs, all the public companies, America's Bitcoin reserve, the nation's states, the actual states in the United States, the FOMO that can get triggered, the odds are very, very high that we'll get a really intense Bitcoin supply shock this year. It could send the price of Bitcoin up to, well, $250,000, which has been our target for a long time. Now, that can happen real fast, too. This is the thing, is all this sort of pessimism in the market right now can just turn like that. And suddenly everyone's mega bullish again because Bitcoin pumps up to 150K in 2 or 3 weeks. It can happen. Thanks for watching.